So let's dive into people that are having it worse than Penn State, who is 3-0. Brent Pry out at Virginia Tech, Deshaun Foster out at UCLA, and with the new recruiting rules, the transfer portal window, this now opens up the opportunity for those players on those rosters to transfer. I won't even pretend to understand what the new rules are, Fitz, but I do know, based on everyone's response to this, that now is picking season, going through the roster and picking through guys that you might be interested in. So how are you approaching this? Because I imagine it also has something to do with Penn State's roster and its depth chart scholarship and how its numbers will be working in the future as well. So how are you approaching these particular conversations when it comes to the potential opportunity with a division or conference rival and also a team in Penn State's recruiting footprint that has a lot of crossover?
Yeah, you look at Virginia Tech's situation, and they're 0-3 for a reason. They're not a very good football team. Brent, going back to Justin Fuente, that was just a hole that the next guy was going to have a tough time digging out. And then Brent didn't help himself with losing a lot of close games last year when they had an attempt to maybe turn the corner. Didn't happen, and this is kind of the fallout from that. So you're looking at that roster, and you see a bunch of guys with prior relationships, and I think that that's a big thing for Penn State when you talk about the guys that they've brought in through the portal in past years. Even if it wasn't an offer, like you look back to Arnold Ebiketie and Derek Tangelo, and those guys weren't offered prospects before they went to their first respective schools, but they were guys that there was some sort of prior relationship with, whether they visited campus once, whether they talked to a recruiting guy, just like that. That's how Penn State likes to operate. And you take a look at the guys that they brought in since, and Nolan Rucci was obviously had some connections there, but like all over the place, these guys are connected. Virginia Tech is going to be different, or not going to be different. It's going to be probably more in the face with guys like Keelan Adams that you saw. Penn State had him as a target 2 cycles ago as a wide receiver. Brett Clatterball is a middle linebacker that visited a bunch. Kyle Altuner visited a bunch from good counsel, went to West Virginia, started as a freshman, got hurt. Now he's at Virginia Tech. Actually, Virginia Tech's entire offensive line basically went over from West Virginia. But you've got all these background situations, and it kind of makes it murky because you've got guys, Dante Lovett, for example, a defensive back from Virginia Tech, who are going to reach out to Penn State. Like this, there's no reason they shouldn't, and there's no reason Penn State should turn down calls at this point either. You've got an opportunity to better your roster and evaluate, and I think that's what's going on right now. The entire roster is being evaluated from top to bottom. I don't think they're going to find all that much, to be honest with you. And you have to separate the recruiting aspect of it. You have to separate Keelan Adams 4 stars from the fact that I don't think he's caught a ball this year, or maybe he's got 1 or 2 catches. So like, that's the thing that you have to go with is like, hey, he was a really good prospect at one time, and you know what? Maybe he wasn't the guy everybody thought he was. So that's what's going on right now. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of parsing the commit list, which has kind of had holes shot through it. I think one guy that you look at from a Penn State perspective, with Virginia Tech's already decommitted, and that's Thomas Wilder, the offensive lineman from Virginia. He came on an official visit. Penn State kind of lukewarm on him, but it gives you a chance to dive back in, look at senior film, see if there's been some development you didn't think that was going to be, and then go from there. So I think that's kind of what you're looking at with Virginia Tech. And hey, Brent Pry's got no reason not to tell James Franklin whether, hey, this guy is actually good, or this guy can't play at Penn State. So like, I think they lean on Brent Pry, and they lean on Michael Hazel. They lean on the guys that were at Penn State beforehand to go through that roster and say, this guy's the real deal, or this guy's a gem. Like there might be a guy in that roster that nobody knows about, and which, the odds there are pretty low, but nobody knows about.
But more information, right? And there is that kind of conversation of, you had your recruiting thoughts about the kid in high school. What changed, what developed, what might have been new information. Guys grow, right? Like, just examples of things that might happen. So it is interesting to have that connection to that roster, and then to have that opportunity. I guess I was getting some things ready in the background, so I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, it's fine. Adam Gorney from Rivals wrote about 5 recruits that doomed Brent Pry. And it was really interesting, the overlap, and these were supposedly big wins, for either Justin Fuente or Brent Pry, that could really help him out, whether it be in-state guys, whether it be guys that actually hit like Mansour Delane from Good Counsel that Penn State didn't offer. He went to Virginia Tech, had a really good career. Now he's, I believe, starting at LSU. And if you can start in LSU in the secondary, you can probably start most schools in the country in the secondary. And by the way, his brother Fahim is now at Ohio State. So you've got things like that. You've got guys that didn't hit. I know Gabriel Williams was a linebacker from DC who got hurt, and Keelan Adams hasn't really played much at all. And then you go back to Gunnar Givens in 2022, and that was a fun recruitment in the sense that, like, I said, absolutely not. This kid is not it at all. Like, I saw there was a video that circulated, not online, but like among people that cover this stuff, of him moving at a camp. And it looked, honest to God, it looked like 41-year-old me out there. You don't want that on your offensive line or your defensive line. He wanted to play defensive line. He's a Vandy now. So like misses like that are perceived big hits at the time and great wins at the time can just kind of go away. And we've seen that at Penn State. We've seen that all over the country. So it's interesting there. I will say, one, circling back around on the commit list, the 2027 commit list has just one guy at Virginia Tech right now. It's 2027 quarterback Ben Musser. He's a pretty good player. Like, I watched him a couple of weeks ago. He's worth taking a look at. I know Penn State's shooting high in 2027. You got, Keegan Croucher's the name that's coming around, but there's also some really good ones coming next weekend. So Ben Musser in 2027, I think, is a very interesting name that has popped up.
How does UCLA, the distance, all those things factor in here? We've spent a lot of time talking about Virginia Tech, and I'm not asking for specific names on the UCLA roster, but just generally, is there anything there for Penn State to kind of plumb the depths or take some shots from that particular roster, which does have Penn State has had some success in California, Southern California, Troy Hune, Darius Dixon. So just curious of your thoughts about how any roster that comes open, like, should everything be on the table for Penn State, or are some things like maybe not worth the time, maybe not as realistic?
Well, I mean, kind of the opposite of what we said with Virginia Tech, right? You've got established relationships with a lot of those guys, or at least some sort of foot in the door relationship with a bunch of those guys in the East. Then you go out West, and you're lucky if you have there are 105 guys on that roster, maybe 10 of them that you've crossed paths with. So it's kind of changes the math in terms of what's out there. Now, UCLA has gone East a bit in the last couple of years. You look on the commit list, Carter Gooden's at the top of the commit list right now, and that was a Penn State target. And that's a guy Penn State's going to get in for the whiteout next week. Wrote that yesterday.
That's right.
That's really
a good one.
Sort of looking at what connections you've had in the past. And Gooden is a guy that, like, makes sense for Penn State. He's a really, really big defensive end. He wants to play defensive end. That was kind of a hang up in his recruitment the first time around. He's 6'4", 260. What's nature going to say about that? We'll find out in a couple of years. But you look at what Penn State has on the defensive line right now. They just picked up Tavian Branch. So you got 3 defensive tackles in this class, 3 pretty decent defensive tackles in this class. So it gives you some wiggle room if you say, hey, maybe you will end up as an edge. We'll see what we'll see what happens with Carter Gooden, and they're going to continue to evaluate too. There's no pressure to take a guy like that either. Like, you've got an opportunity to go out and see not just guys that are committed elsewhere, guys that you've had on campus for official visits, but you have an opportunity to go out and scout the region for Chaz Coleman, who is today's the 18th. It's the 1-year anniversary of Penn State offering Chaz Coleman.
Hey, happy Chaz Coleman Day.
Yeah, how about that? I didn't even plan that, so we did it.